psychoanalysis at that time was a means of reaching the unconscious, and it depended on techniques like free association, slips of the tongue, dream analysis. It discovered a great deal about the unconscious, but as a tool for therapy, it caused Freud to change from claiming that discovering the truth in the unconscious would cure patients to sometimes it would cure patients. And Reich had a patient that he wrote about who was an affable, pleasant, comfortable patient to be treating. His problem was that he had sexual impotence. And Reich treated him for a period of 3 years, at the end of which, having discovered the root of his impotence, which was that the patient had witnessed at a very young age sexual intercourse of his parents and been overwhelmed by it, he was congratulated at the seminar for having achieved the psychoanalytic result, but the patient was absolutely unchanged symptomatically from the time that he had begun his therapy. And Reich said to him, "I'm not helping you, and I think we should end our pathway here." The patient's response was completely accepting. He didn't say, "I paid you good money for 3 years and this is where we end," or "We should have quit before if you knew you couldn't help me," but he accepted perfectly reasonably. And Reich went home and thought about this patient. He wondered, why have I not helped him? And what is there about him that made him unhelpable? And then he thought of his passivity, of his pleasant demeanor, of his total acceptance no matter what the hell happened. And he said, that's where the pathology is. It's in the character. It's not hidden somewhere in the unconscious. And from that point on, he developed character analysis. Now, character analysis is a big departure from the previous psychoanalytic methods, particularly when, as he thought about it, he recognized that character is revealed in the body, that one's stubbornness is recognized by a tight neck, that one's dulled eyes means that one is separated visually from the external world, that the tight ass means you're tight-assed. This was a total departure from previous analytic therapy. When he wrote character analysis, it was recognized as a milestone in psychoanalytic therapy. But when he came to the next step, which was discovering how deeply it's armored in one's body. He was regarded as beyond the pale. And there were rumors of him going off the deep end in the psychiatric community. That's probably the first hint of calling Reich psychotic, the literature about his departure into the physical realm. And that departure into the physical realm, which Reich called a process of armoring, led to further advances in his thinking, because he realized that somehow the physical armoring impedes the width of experience of one's life. Everything that lives has a pulse. You know, there are separate pulses. There's the pulse of our heart, which is its representation of the cardiovascular system. There's the pulse of our breathing. There's the pulse of our gastrointestinal system. There's the pulse of our central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system. All these parts of us pulse separately. Everything that lives pulsates. And Reich recognized that the presence of armoring interfered with that pulsation. And he thought in terms of an energetic flow through the body that is the essence of the pulse. And so he came to create a new paradigm, totally distinct from the paradigm of psychoanalysis. He thought in terms of energy flow, the impedance of energy flow, and how the energy flow determines how one lives one's life. There are people who live their lives with a pulsation like this, and there are people who live their lives with a pulsation like this. That distinction between recognizing the flow of energy and the pulsatile nature of one's life is what distinguishes psychiatric organ therapy from every other pre-existing therapy. The idea of the physical armoring and its consequences labeled Reich as outside of the community in psychiatry, and that was the beginning of the hostility of the psychiatric community to Reich. Reich had caused some unease in the psychiatric community before that time. He thought that what was discovered in psychoanalysis gave insights that should be taken outside of the therapist treatment room. At that time, most of the analysts thought that psychoanalysis belongs with the